Okay, welcome back everyone to our Motzi Shabbos Marathon, Daf 2 at Daf Yud Ches. And we want to learn special from my Shver, Vigdoraya ben Rivka Bas Shiraleya, Moshe Meir ben Esther Fradel, also Refuah Shalema for Chana Bas Shashabina, Hinda Bas Chayesar. They should all have Refuah Shalema B'Sei Shachar Yisrael. So the Gemara says, how does Reb Shimon know Malchus for all of these cases if we don't learn out lav from a Kal V'Chaimer? Says the Gemara, Elakra Yiseiruhu. All of these psukim that he quoted are extra words. Michte, let's examine. Ksiv, in the beginning of the pasuk, it says, Vavesa Sham, you should bring Vavesa Sham, actually it says Vavesa Shama, Olo Seichem, Vizivchechem, Vesmasri Seichem, Vestrumas Yetchem, V'nidrechem, V'nidrechem, or V'charis Bekarchem, V'tzainchem. So it says, it itemizes all these things, V'achaltu l'fnei Hashem alikecha b'mochem. So therefore, afterwards, when it says, thou shalt not eat, it should just say, Lichta Rachmana, a blanket, lo yisucha la'achlam. You're not allowed to eat them. Mahader mifresh b'Rachmana lamali. Why does it say all these words again? Trumas yadcha, nidarecha, nidvaisecha. Why does it say it again? Each one is an extra pasuk. Havalu lave lekol chad v'chad. To give Malchus for each and every one, since each one is an extra pasuk. Gufa, Abarava, Zar she'achal min ha'oila lefnei zrika, a zar that eats from a burnt offering before zrika, chutz l'chaima, outside of the walls of the old city, l'Reb Shimon loike chamish. Now, of course, you understand that when Barry does this, he's doing something very Barry-ish. I mean, the whole thing makes no sense. You're not allowed to eat an oila berry. It belongs on top of the mizbeach. But not only does he eat it when you're not supposed to eat it, but he does everything wrong. He eats it before the zrika, and he eats it outside of the old city. So Reb Shimon says we throw the book at him, and we give him 5 malchus. So Yisrael Fisher says, that's not enough. V'lil keinami mishum v'zor lo yoichel ki kodesh. Barry's not a kohen, so you should get a malchus because a non-kohen can't eat it, for it is holy. Says Gemara, no. The only time there's a isser for a non-kohen to eat something is only where a kohen is allowed to eat it. Over here, even a kohen is not allowed to eat an oila, so he doesn't get malchus. So asks Abi. Yeah, everybody says 5 is not enough. 5 is not enough. Asks Abi, meat in the field, treifa should not be eaten. Now, even though that this means a different thing, that if it's torn, you can't eat it, even if you do shchita, because it can't live. But why does it say basada? From the Lashon Basada, we learn out that something that's taken outside of its mechitza, you're not allowed to eat. So since this oil is taken outside of the walled city, he should get malchus, he should get, says Abi, whack him also for Basa Basada. Look how Abi's grinning. Basa Basada tray for like say, whack him. Says the Gemara again. Once it's taken out of its boundary, Nasser. Again, the Gemara says, the only time you're usher is if in its boundary you're allowed to eat it. But here, even in its boundary, you're not allowed to eat it because it's an island which is supposed to go on the mizbeach. Even inside, you're not allowed to eat it. You don't get malchus. So Mel says, I'm sorry, there's no way that he's getting off the hook with just 5 malchus. I mean, everybody is aghast at that. V'lil nami ki Rebbe Eliezer. The Amar Rebbe Eliezer lo yoichel ki kodesh. You can't eat it ki kodesh because it's kodesh. So the Gemara says, kol shebe kodesh posel. Anything of kodesh that gets disqualified, ba kasem litain lo yisasei al chilasei. Now, since they took this oila outside of the temple, it says it was beyond the chayma, So they surely took it outside of the temple. It's possibly yotzei. And since it's possibly yotzei, when he eats it, he should get this lav. And therefore, says Mel, at least whack him 6 times. Right? Mel's also smiling. Says the Gemara, again, Hani miliecha de koidim sulay. That's only if before you took it out, chazi, it was fit. Hacha de koidim sulay nami loy chazi. Here, even before you took it out, it wasn't fit because it's an oiler that has to go on the mizbeach. So therefore, he doesn't get malchus. Now, the bottom line is that Shimon Deer is not going to stand for this. He says there's no way that Barry's just getting 5. No way. 5 is not enough. So asks Shimon, who is smiling from ear to ear, asks Shimon, he should get malchus because of another teaching of Rebbe Eliezer. The Tanya Rebbe Eliezer, Aimer, kol shehu bekalul tiyeh, anything that's supposed to be totally burnt up on the altar, litain loisase alachilasa. And since this is an oila, which is kalul tiyeh, it has to be totally burnt, he should get whacked. Shimon wins. Einachanami, Barry, break out the bengay. You're going to get it 6 times. So why doesn't it count it? Why does Rava only count 5? The Rava mahai krokama. Rava says 5 from this specific pasuk. He wasn't talking about the totality of what Barry is going to get. Actually, Barry gets 6 malchus. And that's before we start looking into what he ate for supper. Now, Barry after Parsha Shmini. But anyway, says the Gemara, and if you're just joining us, wherever you are, we are on Yud Ches Amud Beis, moving at a nice clip, 7 lines from the top of Yud Ches Amud Beis. On these very late Motzei Shabbos, I try to go a little quicker because I have Rachmanis for everybody, especially since you have to be back here at 5:30 tomorrow afternoon. You have to be up by 5:30 tomorrow afternoon. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Gidol Amar Rav, Kayin she'achal mechatis va'ashim lifnei zrika. If a kayin eats from a sin offering or guilt offering before the blood is sprinkled on the altar, like he gets malchus. Well, it makes sense. You're not allowed to eat until the zrika. The zrika is what's matter. But here it says it gets malchus. My timer. The Amar Kra, because the pasuk says, now it never says a lav, but we infer it from a positive command. The Amar Kra, v'achlu aisam, when should you eat it? V'achlu aisam asher kupar bahem. You eat it, that which received atonement. The atonement is the zrika. So, la'acha kapara in, when it says you should eat it when you receive atonement, we infer la'acha kapara in, after the atonement, yes, lefnei kapara loy. Now this is, it doesn't say thou shalt not, but this is a lav abba michlal aseh. This is a negative inferred from a positive. And lav abba michlal aseh lavu. That's what the Gemara wants to float. And since it says you should eat when you receive atonement, that implies that before the atonement, you're not allowed to eat it. And the Gemara wants to say that a lav abba michlal aseh is a lav. So the Gemara says that's not true. Masav Rabbah, from this week's parsha, v'kol behema mafreses parsa. Any animal has split hooves. V'sheisa shesa shtei prosis, and its hooves are split. Malas geira b'behema, if it chews its cud, also you could eat it. Now you'll say, then we should infer a lav. Only if it has the 2 signs. But if it doesn't have the 2 signs, you can't eat it. And now, if that's true, and you just make the inference, so then what do you need to follow up? then why does the pasuk then have to say ezel lo yisaychelu? Ezel lo yisaychlu. This you shouldn't eat. Lamali. So you see that just inferring a law from an asay is not enough to give you a prohibition. So the Gemara says, scratch that. Scratch that. You're right. We have to revise this. Amar Rav Gidlo Amar Rav Zor she'achol mechatas v'ashim lefnei zrika potter. If a non-kayin eats from a sin offering or a guilt offering before the blood is sprinkled, he doesn't get malchus. My time, huh? The Amakra v'achlu eisam asher kupar behem. One who eats once the kapara is done. Kol heicha de karinim v'achlu eisam asher kupar behem. When you can eat it because it received its atonement because of the zrika. Karinan bei v'zor lo yochel. V'zor lo yochel kodesh. Then we applies the prohibition that non-kohen shall not eat that which is holy. But it's not true that you can eat it because you received the atonement because they didn't do the zrika yet. Lo karinan bei v'zor lo yochel. So Adarab, it's coming to tell you that if a non-kohen eats from a chatas and ashim before the zrika, that he doesn't get malchus. You want to ask something?
Yeah, why did they, in the Klil Tiyah, why did they ask the kasha on the Kalal?
Are you going all the way back?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask that, yeah.
Amar Rabbi Lazar, Amar Rabbi Shai, Amar Rabbi Lazar, Amar Rabbi Ishia. Says Rabbi Lazar in the name of Rabbi Ishia. So now the Gemara goes back. We said that Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Akiva hold that by Bikurim, the formula, the saying of the formula, which we say in the Haggadah, Arami Yovid Avi, and that whole formula invalidates it. Until the Kriya is done, even a Kayin can't eat it. So here we'll see an opposing opinion. Amar Rabbi Lazar, Amar Rabbi Ishia, Bikurim hanocha ma'akeves b'hem. The Kayin can't eat it until you put the Bikurim lifnei Hashem Elikecha. You have to put it before the Mizbeach. Kriya ein ma'akeves b'hem. The formula is not ma'akev. Says the Gemara, Mi Amar Rabbi Lazar hachi. Did Rabbi Lazar say this? Now, here I have to give you a piece of information. In the formula of the Bikurim, it says v'samachta b'chol ha'tov. You should rejoice with all the good. Asher nasan l'cha Hashem Elikecha. Now the time of rejoicing is from Shavuos to Sukkot, because that's the time where the crops are harvested. So the only time that you could do Kriya on Bikurim is from Shavuos to Sukkot. Now you could bring first fruits after Sukkot, but then you don't say a formula. But between Shavuos and Sukkot, you need to say a formula. Listen to this halacha. If let's pick somebody, Mamish out of the hat over here, Mamish. Marshall, who dressed up for the occasion, Marshall separates the first fruits on Aseret Yimei Tshuva. And then he doesn't bring it until Hanukkah. The din is he has to let it rot. And the reason why he has to let it rot is since he separated it before Sukkot, it had a chiyuv of Kriya. But now, on Hanukkah, since it's not the time of Simcha anymore, he can't say the formula. And once he had the chiyuv of Kriya and he can't say the formula, he cannot bring it. Now, Rabbi Eliezer says this halach, but it makes no sense. Rabbi Eliezer said Kriya is not ma'akiv. And here it seems to be, he says it has to rot because he can't do the Kriya. So let's see the Gemara inside. Says the Gemara, "Umi Amar Rabbi Lazar Achi, v'Amar Rabbi Lazar Amar Rabbi Yishia, Hifrish Bikurim Kaidem L'Chag." Marshall separates the Bikurim during Aseres Yemei Tshuva. V'Avra Aleim Achag, and Sukkot passes, and he didn't bring it yet. He can't bring it afterwards. Yerkavu, he has to let it rot. Now, my lab, what's the reason? Mishum D'Loi Matzim L'Mikra Aleim, because he can't do the Kriya, because you can only do the Kriya B'Zman Simcha. And since there was a Chiyuv Kriya, because he separated it before Sukkot, and now after Sukkot he can't do the Kriya, he has to let it rot. And if you'll say that the Kriya does not invalidate, Amai Yerkavu. So here the Gemara says the famous rule to the Reb Zera. The Amar Reb Zera, Kala Roi Labila, if you bring a mincha in a keli, if you bring a mincha that's less than 60 Israelim, then Ein Bila Makeves Bay. Then the fact that you don't need the mincha, need K-N-E-A-D, you don't need the mincha, is not ma'akiv. But the kol she'ein roy labila, but if you bring it in a keli that's more than 60 Israelim, which you cannot need, since it's not possible to need it, then bila makeves bay. This is a big klal in halacha. For example, by chalitza, there's a formula. The woman has to say, Meyon Yavami Lakim Lachiv Shem. The din is that if you don't say the formula, the chalitza is still good. But if the woman or the man is mute, then it's no good. Why? Because the formula is not ma'akiv, but you have to be able to say the formula. So here, Marshall, since he batched up, he separated it. If he would have separated it after Sukkot, it's fine. But he separated it before Sukkot, so he got a Chiyuv Kriya. And now he wants to bring it after Sukkot when he can't do the Kriya anymore. So now it's not Roy Kriya. Then it has to rot. He says that Rav Asi says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that the Kriya, that the Hanocha is Ma'akiv, but the Kriya is not Ma'akiv. The Kashalei de Rabbi Yochanan, he has a steer Rabbi Yochanan. Umi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Bikurim, Hanocha Ma'akeves B'hem, putting them in front of the altar is Ma'akiv, invalidates Kriya ain't Ma'akeves B'hem, while the formula is not Ma'akiv. I vaboy minei Rav Asim Rabbi Yochanan bikurim me'amasei mutarim lekahanim. When is bikurim permitted to the kahanim? V'amalei, and he said haru'uyin lekriya, that which is fit for a formula, right before Sukkot, mishakar aleim. You have to say the formula. V'she'ein ru'uyin lekriya misharo pnei habayis, when it sees the mikdash. So, kasha kriya. Here he says that kriya is ma'akiv, and earlier he said that kriya was not ma'akiv. And kasha hanocha. Here he says putting it in front of the mizbeach is ma'akiv, and here he says it's not ma'akiv. It just has to be raya pnei habayis. It just has to be brought to the mikdash. It doesn't have to be placed in front of the mizbeach. So the Gemara says kriya like kasha. Formula on formula is no kasha. Or Reb Shimon, when Rabbi Yochanan says Kriya is ma'akiv, he was saying like Reb Shimon, who learned out from the pasuk of Trumas Yodecha that the Kriya is ma'akiv. Or Rabbanan who hold that the Kriya is not ma'akiv. Hanocha nami like kasha. You see, there's a din that in order for something to be ma'akiv, it has to be repeated. Shana ha'kosav la'akiv. The Torah repeats it to tell you that it invalidates, that it's indispensable. So the question is, does it say putting it in front of the altar twice? So the Gemara says, "Hanocha nami like kasha, ha Rabbi Yehuda ha Rabbana." One is Rabbi Yehuda, one is the Rabbana. My Rabbi Yehuda we'll see that Rabbi Yehuda says that it doesn't say putting it in front of the Mizbeach twice. When it says V'hinachtai L'fnei Hashem Alikecha, that means to wave it. It's a very, very unusual drasha. It's reading V'anachtai as V'hinchisai, to direct it, to wave it. V'anachtai zu tnufa. Atay mezu tnufa ayin ela hanacha mamish. Maybe it means to place it in front of the altar. It already says to place it there. That's waving it. So according to him, it doesn't say placing twice. And therefore, he holds that placing it in front of the Mizbeach doesn't invalidate. And the kohen could eat it even before it's placed in front of the Mizbeach. Oman tana de poligalei Rabbi Yehuda, and holds v'hinachtai means putting it in front of the Mizbech, and then it's 2 times, and therefore it's ma'akiv. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the great Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. The Tanya, v'lokach ha'koyin atena miyodecha, the kohen will take the basket from your hand. That's where we learn out waving. Limit ala bikurim shetu'unin tnufa. It tells us that the kohen has to wave it. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Now, my time with Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, because it says here, "V'lokach hakohen atena miyodecha," and he has a gzeira shava yad yad, asa yad yad mishlomin. Ksiv hacha v'lokach hakohen atena miyodecha. The kohen takes the basket from your hand. V'ksiv, and it says by shlomim yodov tvi'ena es isha Hashem. The Bailam, his hands wave the fire offering of Hashem. And we learn out from here something important. And that is that it needs to be done jointly by the kohen and the owner. Makan kohen, just like over here, by Bikurim, it says, V'lokach kohen atenem yodecha, aflahalan kohen. By Shlomim, the kohen has to wave it. Umalahalan bailam, and just like by the Shlomim, the owner waves it. Yod of Tviena is talking about the owner. Afkan bailam. So also by Bikurim, the owner waves it. Okay, so how do we do it? Maniach kohen tachas yad bailam. The kohen puts his hand under the bailam, umeinef, and waves it. So you need both of them. But since v'lokach hakohen atenem yodecha is what tells you waving, so therefore we have 2 psukim, v'anicha l'fnei Hashem alikecha, and v'hinachtai, telling us that it should place before the altar. So according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Taka, placing it before the altar would be ma'akiv. And if you don't, the kohen can't eat it and it would get malchus. Now, by the way, this of the kohen putting his hand under the bailam, some say it doesn't mean literally under, because it would be a chatzitza between, since the kohen has to hold it, if he put it under the Yisrael's hand would be a chatzitza, so they say it means alongside. Others say that one holds it from the rim and the other one holds it from the bottom. Yet others say that human hands are not a chatzitza. So there's a big machlokes about this. And now we'll go back to Berish. What was your question?
Why did we more ask on cruelty, that it's a lav nichal me'aseh? It didn't question it there.
No, over there there's a lav.
Oh, I thought
Over there the pasuk says a lav. It just doesn't tell us what it is.
Oh, I see.
But over there there's a lav.
Okay.
Rabbi say again, a reminder, tell your friends, tell your rabbis, tell your brothers and cousins that tomorrow, shir is at 5:30, shir tomorrow at 5:30. Bring a friend, and now we're going to do the Mishnah Yomis.